The Idea Start podcast explores all things innovation, creativity, and entrepreneurship, co-created by Idea Start and the Center for the Advancement of Teaching and Learning. Join us to move your ideas to impact with the University of Manitoba community.
Today on the Idea Start podcast, we're joined by Divya, Sharma, and Thomas Blumer. Both are with the University of Manitoba Students' Union. Divya is the president and Thomas is the general manager. And interesting fact, Divya is the 100th president of UMSU and the youngest president of UMSU. Let's start the conversation. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thomas and Divya, welcome to the Idea Start podcast. We are delighted to have you both here today in our studio to learn a little bit more about you and to learn a little bit more from you as well and the unique experience that you bring in representing students. So, Divya, president of the University of Manitoba Students' Union. Will you tell us a little bit about that? Tell us about the union. Tell us about your role as president.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much for having us here, Janine. Thomas and I have been talking about coming on this podcast for about a week now. We literally touch base about it every single day, and we're like, okay, we're doing this, and now we're finally here. So thank you so much for having us.
Happy to have you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're super excited as well.
Sounds great. So in terms of answering your question, first of all, this year, one of my favorite quotes that I've learned to really live out is, and this quote's become so prevalent in my life now, where the quote says, "Don't tell me that the sky's the limit when there's footsteps on the moon." And I think that's what my role at the unions really taught me and what UMSU's really taught me is that the sky is the limit and this role and UMSU can really be what you want it to be because the opportunities are endless. And I think that fits really well with the theme of entrepreneurship, where it's a lot of problem solving, it's thinking outside of what could be even imagined and really making it happen with all the supports and the networks you have in place. And I think that's essentially what my role is and what UMSU is, where there's so much you can do and there's all these resources, all these support systems, all this feedback from students and this really spirit of getting things done and making things happen for the betterment of students and making student life better, connecting people and just uplifting everyone as we navigate student life and student experience as a student myself in my third year. So I think that's what really my role is. On a day-to-day basis, it's really unique every single day. So, and I joke around about this all the time with students and staff where I'll say, I literally essentially eat, live, breathe, sleep UMSU.
Yeah.
So from the moment I, wake up in the morning, the first thought is UMSU, like what's my day going to be like? And then, throughout the day and when we're transitioning folks into this role, like one of the biggest things I told them was that this isn't like your typical 8:30 to 4:30 job. Like this is way beyond that. And like you can make it what you want it to be. So during the day, 8:30 to 4:30, I'll obviously do UMSU. And then in the evenings, we'll have events to go to or, other outside of scope things that you'll do to connect with students. And then, this week, I think I've been going home like pretty late every night and then I'll get home and I'll be like, okay, so what's on the calendar for tomorrow? What can get me excited?
It starts again.
And it starts again. And then it's not even like, okay, I can sleep and like shut off my brain. I'll like dream about UMSU, like what can we get done tomorrow? And then once again, I'll wake up and it's like, and as I'm sort of finishing up my final term here, it kind of gives me a little bit of this strange feeling that like, what am I going to do when, UMSU isn't here anymore? It makes me a little bit nervous because what am I going to do when I can't think about UMSU? So I'm definitely thinking about like the next steps, but for the time being, I'm so incredibly grateful that this amazing organization is in place and what it has to offer. And just sort of speaking about the scope of this organization, it's absolutely incredible. So prior to me coming into this role, I had no idea that UMSU was an $18 million organization that's essentially fully run by a 5-student executive. And these are students that really at the brink of it. And we have a board that's comprised of all the 26 student faculties and councils to get that representation and that feedback from students on a bi-weekly basis that allows for really natural feedback on a consistent basis. And then we learn about governance, like students actually get to practice governance, what the structures of a union are like. We have a board of trustees as well that allows us to get that financial component in, which I think is really, really critical. And, just this last month, we approved audits, and that's not something that students typically get to do until they graduate or get into like their corporate job or whatever that be like. So I really do think entrepreneurship is at the core of AMSU because you get to learn so much. And I know that we'll get into this a little bit more, but we do have student businesses, 7 in total on different campuses, so the Bannatyne campus as well as the Fort Garry campus, and these are all, we essentially have students employed there. And I think what's so critical about our employment is that we typically err towards the side of hiring international students because of the international working cap. They're not able to work as many hours off campus, but they can work as many hours as possible on campus. So I think it provides them that opportunity as well. And then we have services where we roll out the U-Pass. This year there's 20,000 U-Passes that are active, and we provide about $9 million in revenue to the city, which I think is incredible. So not only do we help generate, economy within U of M, but also outside of U of M, where we contribute to the province and the city of Winnipeg. And on top of that, we allow for students to once again really practice and marinate within this incredible structure we have in place by being on committees such as the Finance Committee, Governance Committee, Judicial Board, and so many other working groups that are in place. We are doing a strategic plan this year, like what student is able to engage in doing a strategic plan prior to their first job. So I know I've been talking for a really long time, but I think this isn't even all of what AMSU is, but I think this gives a flavor of what exactly my role is and what I'm, doing new on a day-to-day basis, and really being able to work with students, and obviously Thomas, which I know we'll get into, but that's a little bit about what AMSU
that's great.
is.
Thank you, Divya. Can I kind of zero in on your experience now as the president? Could you identify something that maybe brings you a lot of joy? And maybe a challenge in the role.
Absolutely. Well, the joy, I think, is just being here, being on campus, being able to be a full-time student. So I'm taking 3 courses right now, but also at the same time, operating and working with a union that once again employs so many students. I get to work with, I believe it's 36 full-time staff on a day-to-day basis, and really working with them to once again make student experience better and possible. So I think that's the joy of my job. And I guess challenges don't really feel like challenges when you love your job so much. But I think one thing that I've learned a lot from is Thomas teaching me a lot of the HR pieces and how to track performance of full-time employees and giving them feedback and that sort of piece that I hadn't had a lot of experience with prior to coming into my role. And I think this year I've been learning a lot of that.
Oh, thank
Wow,
you for that.
Divya, that's amazing.
Thank you.
I think she's passionate.
Wow, she is, absolutely. and shows. And, the amount of learning you're getting, I'm so happy for you. I
Yeah.
think this is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And the kind of opportunities I guess AMSU is giving you, and I'm sure the rest of the team, it's phenomenal.
Yes, absolutely.
And I'm glad that we have you as the president.
Thank you.
So that's perfect. So, Thomas.
Yes.
Why don't we talk about your story now a bit?
Sure.
And why don't you start off by telling us how did you land up in this role? Maybe a little bit of your background and what's your role about? And like Divya said, most people probably wouldn't know. I didn't know so much about AMSU, honestly, and this was great. And so maybe you can talk to us a little bit about that.
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me today. This is a privilege. It's to sitting together here and just talking a little bit about the stuff that we love doing on a daily basis. And just to quickly say to Divya, I mean, I'm so happy that there's another person that dreams about AMSU as well, because this is what I do for the past 17 years. I'm so engaged in AMSU. This is really where I poured my heart and soul in on a consistent basis. But so, okay, a little bit about myself. So originally I'm from Germany. I'm here now for about almost 26 years. And my background is business, is entrepreneurship, is management. That's what I studied and what I have my expertise in, and I really embrace that. And part of that is really, for me, the biggest joy that I get is working with other people. I think this is where I excel in as well, and forging collaborations and partnerships is something that I truly embrace and enjoy. So I came here, and my role really, to compare to how I'm working together with Divya in AMSU, is mostly as a supportive one. Like, I'm here from year after year, and one of the biggest privileges I get to work with these extremely bright individuals, those young adults who are just in their absolute first steps going forward, leaping into life and leaping into their careers, and I have really, like, I cannot say it enough, that I am really privileged working together with these young individuals who are bringing so many ideas and so many things. And Divya talked about what she learned from me. I'm learning every year more about life and what's going on in their lives, and just to sort of build out my experiences as well. So, and I'm doing it with joy, and this, this is really, in a nutshell, who I am.
Thank you.
That's amazing. And it's like I said, I didn't know so much about AMSU. So thank you both for kind of educating us. And I'm sure a lot of our audiences would, share my view.
Yeah.
So this is wonderful. And Divya, I thought I'll probably take the cue next and kind of talk to you about how is it that, AMSU and the board, and how do you kind of listen to the student voices and understand what are their concerns? What kind of inputs are you getting? Is entrepreneurship amongst the issues that you are representing at all? And what are the mechanisms in place for both listening to these issues and concerns, or let's say inputs, and how do you address them? So what's the mechanism for that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this role is really a lot about problem solving and listening to people, and really having that like human aspect, but then also having that almost business and entrepreneurial thinking in terms of figuring things out together in a collective way. So one of the ways, as you mentioned, is from the board. So during board meetings, sometimes we'll go into closed session where people will share their grievances, or what's happening at their faculty or council that we can help solve. And particularly in terms of representing student diverse voices, we do have 7 different community groups that represent some of the underrepresented groups here on campus. So that would include, the Women's Center, the 2S LGBTQIA+, Rainbow Pride Center, there's the Indigenous community, the Black students community, the racialized community, the accessibility community, and then there's one more, so there's about 7.
Right.
And I think having them on the board is really, really helpful. So prior to every board meeting, we'll try to connect with the community reps, and they'll tell us, here's some of the arising issues. So for example, one of them is getting more scholarships for folks from their community. So how do we work with whether that's the Senate of U of M, where we approve like the terms of references with them, or is it something that we do with certain offices, whether that's donor relations or the financial aids in office, which is something Thomas and myself and our VP Student Life's navigating meeting right now, and it's really about sometimes like portfolio management. So like I said, we're a 5-person elected executive, and each of them have a role. So we have a VP University Affairs, VP External Affairs, Finance and Operations, and then Student Life. So for example, this morning our VP Finance and Operations had to go talk to the engineering students, the Engineering Students Council, and they were able to figure out some finances, and she was really running around. So it really shows like these folks are passionate about getting their finances in track and like, working together in a way that supports students the best. And of course, finances are a huge part of all this. So each year, each community group, gets a sum of money to organize events for their community, and in a way that's problem solving, because how do we get communities to come together on such a diverse campus, and how do we make sure they feel like they're at home? And I think so the community that I missed earlier was the international students community, and one of the biggest hurdles that we're experiencing right now is getting international student health care for them. And that's a lot of feedback that we're hearing. So one of the functions of our union is advocating to all the levels of government. And we had a meeting with the mayor the other day. So earlier this week, we met with the mayor and Councillor Janice Luce, and we talked about some of these issues, once again, including things like transit and the UPass contract, the negotiation that's coming up next year. So another piece of our role is negotiating contracts with folks and getting student businesses in place at the union. And even once again, the UPass contract is such a huge contract to look at. So just like building up to that, and then running campaigns with the city. And one of the conversations that we talked about with the mayor was around entrepreneurship and how do we get students to stay in this wonderful city, and more importantly, this wonderful province, because oftentimes we'll see, students leaving, going to bigger cities like Toronto, Vancouver. But what can we do to make sure that students stay here at the core in their home to grow our province, because the city has so much potential? And I think we see that at U of M specifically, because when they were here on campus, we talked about how AMSU represents about 27,000 undergraduate students, which is a huge population, and that's bigger than the whole town of Beausejour. And oftentimes we represent more constituents than city councilors or even individual MLAs. So it's a lot of folks to get together to address concern, and I think that's really critical. But in terms of that entrepreneurship aspect, oftentimes students will come to us and they'll want to table, so we'll give them space for free of cost to table in University Centre, and they get so much exposure from that, where they get to launch sort of their business ideas, or share things like jewelry or art and things that they're really passionate about. And one of the really cool things that I recently saw pop up was an AI calendar manager, which was actually done by 2 students at Asper, and we at AMSU gave them like a couple gift cards to really attract students to their table. So it's supporting entrepreneurship in those ways as well. And I think that's the beauty of our union, where we try to make things work for students, for the betterment of students in many ways, including entrepreneurship.
Wow, that's super impressive.
Yeah, thank you for that.
I just had a follow-up question on that, though. You were talking about these communities, these 7 communities.
Yeah.
So the representatives of these communities, are they also elected every year? Or
yes,
how does that governance work?
Yeah, so they're elected every year. Each year we have elections in March, which is, it's one of the most exciting times of the year, because students are so incredibly engaged during that time. And I talked about that tabling aspect in UC, and people will think about like innovative ways to get students to their table, whether that's through food or like having games at their table, or like last year I saw this really cool thing where they would like scan a QR code, and you'll put in your name, and then you'll win a little prize, or you'll like spin the wheel. So in that way, even I see like entrepreneurship really come through, and then they'll like go to different different buildings, and like really mapping that out. And AMSU itself, I believe we give like about a $400 budget to students every year to each candidate that wants to run their campaign, and I think dealing with money in that way, and then executing a whole campaign while to be an elected member, and then hearing student concerns while you're tabling. And I think it really provides students the opportunity to grow and put their name out there and experience entrepreneurship in a whole new way.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's really
I had
great
one
to know.
question for you, Divya. I appreciate some of this context around tabling and maybe starting your micro business, getting started on campus. What, if anything, do you hear from students about entrepreneurial thinking to maybe address social challenges or environmental challenges or other causes that students are interested and passionate about?
Yeah.
Do you hear that?
Absolutely. We do. We
Yeah?
certainly do. And I know that sometimes Thomas and I get emails about that where, students are like, we want to get, one of the things that we actually got earlier this year is getting e-scooters on campus to make sure the commute's easier, because this campus is huge, right? So we actually got a full proposal about it, and then our VP University Affairs worked with that individual to submit a proposal to the university, and now the university is looking into it. So yes, these things are
Yeah,
very
interesting.
real, and sometimes students will come in and just talk to us about their initiatives and how can we make things possible. Another thing that we, I think, did specifically, we're working on things like economic reconciliation here at U of M, and I think one of the ways that we do that is looking at blanket ceremonies for the board. Another way we do that is this particular month we're doing an Indigenous Students Month, and our Indigenous Students rep was able to put together a gala, which is going to take place in Marshall McLuhan Hall this coming Monday, actually, and she really was able to organize an entire event around that. And then throughout the rest of this month, there's going to be activities where we're going to do beading, and folks are going to come in and speak about what they're doing. And I think it really helps provide that ecosystem for students to be heard, be represented, and really see themselves in that position to do something
That's right.
for their community.
Yeah. In fact, we use this phrase often about moving ideas to impact, and those are some good examples for sure.
And these are great opportunities. I
Absolutely.
just hope, all the students who are listening
Yeah.
already know about them. But if they don't, I think this is phenomenal,
Thank you.
right? And they should probably reach out. And the fact that a student reached out with the e-bike idea and you supported, I mean, that's phenomenal. That's great to know.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe we can transition a little bit here. Thomas, I'm going to put you on the hot seat. We would love to learn a little bit more about UMSU Ventures. Can you share with our audience a little bit about what is that about? How did that come to be?
Sure, absolutely. I'd love to. The beginning of the UMSU venture was sort of a prayed for it, as you will. It was really something that just before COVID, we recognized there was a lot of students, which Divya already explained, who are interested in really getting into and get started in entrepreneurship or getting started their own business, or have just an idea and they just don't know where to start. And often, I think some of the educational pieces are sometimes a little bit out of reach for some of these individuals, because they're not necessarily coming from the regular disciplines that you would expect. Entrepreneurship is coming from. The first thing when you talk about entrepreneurship or business, the first thing that comes to mind is thinking about Asper and thinking about business schools and management, and this is often not the case. This is just ideas that students have, or have a hobby, and they are so passionate about it that they are just a little bit stuck in this phase where am I going to bring this next, or how am I going to expand that, or how am I going to go and take this out of this sort of idea phase into an actual practice. So what UMSU did for many years now already is giving student businesses tabling opportunities. So there's tables that we provide at a particular time of the year, where we're just going to have students approaching us, and they can rent a table in the UC Center, which is a high traffic area. There's about 10,000 people going through on a daily basis, sort of crossing through the building, just because of it is very central, as the name entails. And so the exposure is there, and so students really gonna have an opportunity just to test drive some of their ideas, which is really kind of cool. So we had this then, and you're watching this, and we had this space available, which I thought would be a phenomenal idea, just to really put it a step further, like really not just having them do this for a day or for a week, but giving it this for a couple of months, like giving them actually their own space, and really letting them or facing them with some of the unique challenges that is included in opening an own space and a business, and thinking about from end to end what do they actually need to do this. And it's in a very low sort of stake environment. We are not expecting students to pay for the space. The space is given for free to them. The only thing that we are doing is they have to do a proposal to us, and a proposal is just to lay out and answer a few questions, or just to really sort of see that they have thought this really through, and they're not just coming up with the ideas and just like, so
that's important.
Yeah, exactly. And so this is how it started, and then just this past year, we actually finally were able to had executive teams really behind this and being really strongly behind it. We were able to execute it. So we renovated the space, and we put it out there. And sure enough, there was a lot of students who were actually really interested in this, and we started the process, and we knew that we actually were on something here. At the same time as when the university started this entire entrepreneurial sort of movement on campus, and this is also when Rajeev and I actually met in this, and then later on with you as well, and so it started falling in place. A lot of these elements that they were so very disconnected at the beginning started to sort of come together, and our approach was just really to come to the ground where students really are operating, and really give them an opportunity to get a chance to do this without sort of the big scare of making a big investment, or make a big time investment, or a big investment in terms of monetary, because often the ideas are phenomenal. Like I said, I'm in a very unique position, always like working together with these amazing executives that come in year by year, and they're really the brightest and have the sort of the ideas they're bringing and we're learning from. But yeah, so this is really how we started, or the whole venture idea, and it was very successful. Like there was just so many folks who were interested and continuously being successful in getting in there, and we are having somebody in there right now, and it will be turning, I think, in the next month or so, we're going to be looking for the next students who would like to be in there. And
okay.
So that's sort of in the short way to, yeah.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. So it's a physical space.
It's a physical space.
And it's provided like by students, for students.
That's right.
And I love that. Allowing people to start with where they're at.
Exactly.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And use that to learn
And
for next steps.
10,000 footsteps a day. Wow. That's quite a lot. And I'm sure the students who get that space, would be thrilled with that kind of footsteps and visibility. And I think that's a huge opportunity for any student who wants to promote their business.
Yeah.
And
So
boy,
what was the
glad,
first business?
Yeah.
What was the first business? Great you ask. Well, it was a business that was really, it was about like handmade jewelries, and it came with a phenomenal story. It was designed in a lot of ways so that there was mental health was in sort of the center of things. As we all know, coming out of COVID, we recognize that there is a huge increase in mental health issues, and we're trying to sort of dealing with all of that. And this individuals had this phenomenal idea to create jewelry that also had some elements in it. It was designed that there are, for example, there was rings who have like a fidget spinner on it, like something that sort of has not only like so the aspect of having a piece of jewelry, but it was functional. It was functional in a way, and it was it was just very well designed, and the story behind this was just very unique, and sort of Tommy in there and executing his first business for us was just a godsend. Like he really made it possible to really display what is possible.
Yeah.
And it was very successful. Yes. Yeah. So
And those designs were great. I bought some for my wife.
It was very attractive and very functional. Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, very good.
So Divya, let's just bring you in on this AMSU Ventures thing. How do you think the AMSU Ventures kind of plays into building that entrepreneurial mindset for students? How do you think it's important?
Yeah. So as Thomas said, like, first of all, just the amount of traffic that goes through UC and
Exactly.
where that particular space is, it's such a high visibility space because right when you walk into the university center, it's right to your left and you'll see it and it's so visible. And we actually had folks coming from a student union in Ontario, and they're looking at getting their own building, so we gave them a little tour and they were just so amazed when we showed them the entrepreneurial space. We even show like anyone who comes, including like government officials, and we do a whole tour of the building, and they are just so amazed by how much AMSU does, but secondly, like that particular space, because it's such a huge hub for innovation. I personally really like going there. I think right now there's a student business where they're doing like slimes and food slimes, which I think is really, really cool, and students will go in there and people are so excited when they walk in, and you'll see like the student who's inside that room who has the business, their face lights up when someone comes in, and it's just so exciting. So people are so impressed by that space, and I think it really allows for students to visualize, and I think that's a really key part of entrepreneurship, to be able to visualize and see your dreams come true. And I think that space really offers for that to happen in real life.
Totally.
Yeah.
And do you think kind of these experiences in entrepreneurship would help these students build for their life in terms of the skill sets and maybe help in their career? What do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I love about AMSU is how many people always just want to come back to it and be involved and give back. And I know a couple folks who've like graduated over this past year, and they'll always just want to be involved in some capacity, whether that's sitting in on some of our board meetings or like wanting to be part of AMSU in some sort of a way. So I think when you think about opportunities like this and why students want to come back, it's because of how great they are and how hands-on they are. And 1,000% guaranteed, like, people use these beyond, just their university experience. Like, we'll review some resumes and things like that, and always AMSU's up there. And, like, even from my personal experience, like, I've learned so much over this last year. Like, I will use every bit of it moving forward. Whether that's the connections, how to handle like day-to-day situations, the managerial piece that I'm learning from Thomas, the people skills, and sitting on committees, governance, and so much more. Like it's beyond words how much people get to learn from the entrepreneurial side of things at AMSU.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, I really want to commend you for this whole initiative. When I look at the research about some of the ways that you build an entrepreneurial culture and an entrepreneurial mindset in folks, one of the things that always comes up is providing folks with relatable models. Relatable models, right? Not necessarily Elon Musk, but to see students doing it is actually a really important step in motivating others to say, hey, could that be for me too? Could I give that a try also and access the supports that I might need to be successful in that way? So thanks for making that visible on campus. Love it.
Absolutely.
Okay, last question. Rajeev and I ask all of our guests the same last question, and so maybe you could share your insights with us. But what advice would you give to folks in the UM community who are maybe considering or on the entrepreneurial journey?
Get involved.
All right.
Get
involved. Get involved. Seek out these opportunities and get involved. Ask lots of questions. Get involved. Like there's so many opportunities. I mean, I'm speaking from AMSU. students who have an enormous option or like a possibility to get involved in a very large way, as Divya is the proof of that. Like, get involved.
Love it.
Yeah.
What about for you?
Yeah, I'm gonna end this off with like a quote that I once again really like. I love quotes, but this one I really like. So it says that willpower and action equals impossible dreams, and I think that it's so beautiful in that sense, because oftentimes like students have ideas, but then they're sometimes afraid to put it into action, because this it's this whole web of a huge university. How do you even start? But I think it's really about that first step, that action piece, that like taking leadership in your own life and really stepping up to the challenge. And like Thomas said, just getting involved, putting yourself out there, and then like achieving the impossible, quite literally. And I think from my own experience, like I've been coming to this campus since I was in grade 5, and I knew I really wanted to be here because I think it's such an amazing just ecosystem where literally there's so much that's possible, and I think when you tap into that, it's truly like incredible. So like Thomas said, get involved, make yourself more action oriented, and just go for it.
Fantastic.
Go for it.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Divya,
much.
Thomas, thank you for joining us on the Idea Start podcast today.
Wow, it was a wonderful conversation. I totally enjoyed it, and I'm sure our listeners did too. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you for having
Thanks for
us.
having us. Yeah.
Like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit the bell icon so you don't miss a new episode of the Idea Start podcast. Please connect with us and share your comments below. And let us know how the topics are resonating with you and what guests would you like to see featured.